There is a problem that many who are die-hard advocates of the Second Amendment do not see. Your right to keep and bear arms is the Second Amendment. Why not the First? The reason is that the rights contained in the First Amendment are more important. Why are they more important? Because if we lose them, we will automatically lose the rest of the Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment. What is the First Amendment? When you ask that question, most people say the freedom of speech, and that's only partially correct. The very first thing in the First Amendment is the freedom of religion. Then it gets into what most people remember as the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Then it says, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. The freedom to practice one's religion was curtailed during the COVID pandemic with the forcible closing of churches. The amendment lists speech and press because they were the only two means of communication at the time. Ever since the Bill of Rights was adopted, every new means of communication, such as a telegraph, radio, television, internet, etc., has come under the regulation of the federal government or the protection of the federal government to the detriment of the people. For instance, the internet is protected from being sued by the people for any censorship or other problems that the owners of internet social services may engage in. So we see a deterioration of the fundamental freedom of speech and the press. The First Amendment goes on, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble, which was another provision that was curtailed during the pandemic, limiting even family gatherings. Finally, the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. If people cannot get together, it is impossible to organize a redress of grievances that is well organized. The bottom line for advocates of the Second Amendment is that if we lose the rights enumerated in the First Amendment, we will automatically lose the Second Amendment. And you can say much of the same thing for the rest of the Bill of Rights. They worked together. No right is more important than another in the general scheme of things, but consider the importance of the First Amendment. If we lose the rights enumerated in the First Amendment, we will not have the freedom of speech or any other means of communication in order to talk to one another, to organize resistance to the government banning guns. We will not be able to meet to organize, nor will we even have the right to petition the government in opposition. Now, this may sound crazy right now, but consider what just happened this past week. Many take for granted the luxury of just having fuel. The idea of a cyber attack shutting down a major pipeline would have sounded preposterous years ago. But look at the reality of today. The freedom to come and go as we please is dependent on whether we have gasoline or whether we can afford what gasoline there is available. Oh, you say there will be electric cars. Do you know how long it takes to recharge one of those things? Can you imagine the lines that would ensue at charging stations once everyone has an electric car? Your freedom of movement would be greatly curtailed just because of the time it takes to recharge your car. Oh, by the way, try putting a spare can of electricity in your trunk in case you run out. Lots of luck with that one. The deterioration of our fundamental freedoms within our Bill of Rights cannot be tolerated. Americans cannot compromise in any area from unreasonable searches and seizures in the Fourth Amendment, and on and on. The Second Amendment is important, but to protect it, all of the Bill of Rights must be protected. This means to do all you can to work on the entire scope of Americanism, or not only will the Second Amendment be lost, but all of your freedoms within the Bill of Rights. One last thing. I just watched a major conservative pundit expose the fact that Dr. Fauci had sent money to the viral laboratory in Wuhan, China, in violation of the law, using a loophole in the law. It has taken a year for this information to catch up to our book, China, the deep state's Trojan horse in America, because we exposed the facts concerning Fauci in the book. More, we documented why this was done and how Fauci, the Chinese, and other Americans were working together years before the pandemic hit. You cannot understand the pandemic and the reasons behind it unless you read this book. More importantly, your neighbor cannot understand the pandemic unless you get him reading this book.